Welcome to Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. Our first Reddit post is from Aqueed Borderline. What happens when engineering students are asked to truck-proof a mailbox? Years ago, back when Uncle Dale and Dad were university students, their engineering professor came to their class with a problem that needed solving. Yes, I know there are a lot of mailbox stories on here, but I just learned this story from my dad involving my Uncle Dale family friend, who passed away a few months ago, and figured you guys would get a kick out of it. His mailbox was getting broken by someone driving by every night. He and his wife had put up something like 4 or 5 mailboxes, and all 4 or 5 times the mailbox had been knocked over by someone driving a red truck. Well, if anyone here knows anything about engineers, as Dad puts it, they love solving problems. This professor offered extra credit to any group of students who could come up with a truck-proof mailbox that not only fit with city regulations, but within a budget of 20, which back then was a good-sized chunk of change. And if it's engineering students, they'll make it an experience to remember. Dad and Uncle Dale got together and got to work. They found a steel bar that fit within mailbox regulations. Posts have to be a specific height. To add extra weight, they filled the bucket with the heaviest rocks they could find. Once the concrete had cured, they welded 8 rubbers to the sides of the bar, bent them in half, and stuck it inside a bucket. As a finishing touch, they painted it brown and black to look like wood, and put the ugliest mailbox we could find on sale on top. They brought this monstrosity into class. Moore dragged it because it was so heavy and told the professor to bury the bucket where the mailbox stood. Since they were the first to turn in their project, the professor agreed to give it a try. That night, the professor and his wife were awoken by a metallic bang, followed by a lot of cursing. They went outside, and wouldn't you know it, there was that red truck speeding away, the mailbox still standing. At the base was a broken wooden baseball bat. 2 days later, the professor gets a bill in the mail for a hospital visit. Turns out when the passenger hit the mailbox, he did some serious damage to his arm and shoulder. They were planning on suing the professor, but the professor hired a lawyer who basically told the plaintiffs, you were just going to admit that you were vandalizing the mailbox multiple times. That shut them up. To the best of my dad's knowledge, the mailbox is still standing. The other students who still brought in mailboxes had theirs gifted to different professors throughout the town and are also still standing. This comment is from Murphy's Law. We solved this on my mailbox by putting a large spring at the base. You could bend the post down all the way to the ground and watch it flail around afterwards. It was more for people backing into it than vandalism, and it worked perfectly. This comment is from Don't Trent. For accidental damage, that works way better than making the mailbox invincible, because you don't want to damage cars accidentally bumping the mailbox. You also don't want to hurt people who are exercising due care in their vandalism, just in case they aren't deterred by having to confess to multiple counts of mail tampering. This comment is from Dukai76. My husband is a mason in a beach town in Florida. He had created multiple decorative mailboxes that had block concrete and rebarb in the middle about a decade ago for a few homeowners whose homes he had done block and stucco work for. On Auni, people kept knocking their mailboxes down. Turned out it was drunk drivers. After a couple of totaled cars, ordinances against hubby's creations and similar ones as it was catching started going up. Our next Reddit post is from Tailsificate. My revenge on Looney Lucy, contender for world's worst roommate. Bring your popcorn, because this is a long one. Looney Lucy is a slovenly, food-stealing, clothing-destroying waste of carbon. All that made Looney Lucy a bad roommate, but I had my workarounds, and she had the one saving grace of being quiet at night. I dealt with it by keeping my space clean and ignoring her areas, storing my food at work or my boyfriend's place, and installing a lock on my bedroom door so she couldn't borrow outfits that looked like she could fit into when she had 30 pounds on me. So I put up with it, I put up with it, that is, until she broke our cardinal roommate rule. No one gets a key to the apartment without both roommates agreeing. The rule was sacred. I couldn't even give a key to my boyfriend of more than a year. Unbeknownst to me, Loony Lucy had met a guy online who lived several hours away. Within 2 weeks of meeting him, she invites him to meet IRL and stay over for the weekend. Loony Lucy then mailed this strange man a key to our apartment because he was going to get into town before she got off work. But I was. You read that right, a man she talked to for only 2 weeks, had never actually met, and who I didn't know about now had a key to our shared apartment, and she wasn't going to be there to greet him. I'm starting laundry while wearing only my Victoria's Secret robe because I'll be hopping into the shower right after. I hear the locksmith turn around and see the door swing open to reveal a thin, creepy-looking guy in a trench coat who just stands there silently while I freeze like a fucking idiot rabbit. He's yelling that it's Oak. He's Loony Lucy's boyfriend. CLG suddenly steps forward into the apartment. I come out of my startled scream bloody murder and chuck the laundry detergent at his head before scrambling into my bedroom and locking the door. I scream at him that I don't care who he is, get out or I'm calling the cops, and my 6'4", built like a tank boyfriend. CLG leaves and, to his credit, even locks the door behind him. Poor CLG. She said he was, and she did. I call Loony Lucy and ask her if CLG is her boyfriend and if she gave him a key. She gushes about how they met. I hang up on her midsentence and call my boyfriend, who, lucky me, actually is 6'4" and built like a tank. He comes over, we pack up the essentials, and I move in with him that day. We hadn't thought we were quite ready for that step. Turns out that in the face of Loony Lucy we were. No apology or even excuses from Loony Lucy when BF and I go back the next week to get the rest of my stuff. She yells at me that it's my fault, that I overreacted, and that I'm lucky CLG didn't press charges for the mild concussion my laundry detergent gave him. Now I'm slow to true anger. I'll bitch and moan with the rest of them, but actual rage is not in my usual repertoire of emotion. But guess what? I'm there now. Loony Lucy needs to pay. Still have that popcorn, good. Now, the Toyer lease is in my name only because Loony Lucy's credit is so shitty that nowhere in the good part of town would take her. She'd been living with her parents over an hour away from her job for months before we started rooming together. Hindsight tells me this is because no one else would room with her prior to me. Hindsight's a bitch. I could also evict her, but that wouldn't be nearly as fun as what I decided to do instead. So there's nothing legally preventing me from subletting the apartment for the remaining 14 months on the lease. I post a roommate ad on Craigslist and make it quite the deal. I'll keep my original deposit on file and pay the first 2 months' rent and sublet fee on the condition that they know they're living with foot-thieving, clothing-destroying, bitchy slob. I may want revenge, but I'm not willing to sucker some innocent person into it. Over the next couple weeks I get a few nibbles, but no one has the flavor I'm looking for to match Loony Lucy. Then I get a message from Kevin. Kevin goes down my list of warnings. Kevin doesn't care about the foot thieving. He orders takeout and hates leftovers. For obvious reasons, Kevin isn't worried about Loony Lucy borrowing his clothes. And Kevin admits that he's a huge slob, and not having to pay attention to it is actually a plus. So I tell Kevin the rest of the story. Kevin says the 2 months' rent seems kind of excessive, and that there must be more to the story if I'm willing to pay that on top of the deposit and the sublet fee. Kevin tells me he'll take the deal, but I should know something about him. Kevin says he is very happily active in the singles scene, not looking to settle down, but very much looking to continue bringing home a revolving door of fuck buddies. Sometimes they'll stay for a couple days or a week at a time, so it's good to know the key rule isn't really that big a deal. I tell him it sounds like he and Loony Lucy will be a good roommate match. Kevin fills out the paperwork. Leasing office does its credit background check and gives it the green light. I mail Kevin my key. Kevin moves in. I get a frantic call from Loony Lucy about a strange man showing up saying he lives there with her now. I tell her that's right, he does, and explain the subletting process. She starts raging at me. I hang up and mute her calls. Over the next few days I get a lot of voicemails. Some raging, some whining, some begging. Loony Lucy has been forced to clean and take out the trash like a slave or something because Kevin doesn't bother. Loony Lucy can't move out because she can't get a lease anywhere else and her parents won't let her move back home. Loony Lucy has to keep paying her half of the rent because Kevin told her if she stopped he'd change the locks and move all her stuff out. After a few weeks of radio silence, Loony Lucy calls again and I decide to pick up. She tells me she's so happy to get a hold of me, I have to do something. Kevin is now bringing men home every couple nights, and sometimes they don't leave for days and days. Yeah, having a roommate who hands out keys without your consent to guys you don't know is a bitch, isn't it? Edit. Thank you, using Visigoth. Is that a thing? I'm going to say it's a thing. Editwo. Thank you, anonymous Redditor, for doubling my gold. Is this what it feels like to be rich? This comment is from Tail Suffocate. Silence. And then she hung up. Haven't heard from her since. It was beautiful. This comment is from Mitten Squish. Yeah, having a roommate who hands out keys without your consent to guys you don't know is a bitch, isn't it? What was her response to that? This comment is from Chorleague. There is a post from 5 years ago on 4chan about a guy getting detergent thrown at him after spending his Warcraft money on gas and flowers. That was Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. If you like this content, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you are notified of new uploads. We upload new videos every day. Also subscribe to our Patreon, as that will help us a lot. See you next time.